establishment. I think that energy propelled most of his victories. As we get closer and we hear more and more substance coming out of, or trending towards substance coming out of the Trump campaign, you may have some people taking a second look, but at this point, I think the primary voters are kind of tired of the process too. So it's a hard sell for people to turn the corner on Donald Trump. But I do think that a lot of conservatives who were behind Ted Cruz are still sitting back thinking about Donald Trump. Who is this man?
Yeah, and what I would see happening, Debbie, over the next few weeks as people like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, our Congressman Steve King withhold their full-throated endorsement, aren't they going to try to influence him? What would be some key things that you think that Donald Trump could say that would help out a Ted Cruz supporter or a person that loves Congressman Steve King here and gets them behind Donald Trump?
It's an odd thing in this cycle because I view this primary this past year as having been, when people always use the word bruising or harsh, I think this was the worst in memory. I think the tone of Donald Trump's rhetoric, the personal jibes, it was just over the top. And so I think that people who were strong Ted Cruz supporters, I don't think they should be expected just to jump on board with Donald Trump now that he is the presumptive nominee. I think that Donald Trump has to court them. And to your question, to how to court them, I think he's got to convey to conservatives that I'm a conservative guy. I know I used to be a Democrat, but I'm going to be strong on this. I think going back to his two campaign themes will help him. The two I mentioned about the border and Islamic immigration, unchecked and unvetted. And I think he's also, this economic policy stuff. I mean, he's serious economic conservatives. When Donald Trump talks about imposing tariffs to solve that, there are a lot of people aware that tariffs, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, are what got us, or a big factor that got us into the Depression. So I think he's got to signal some maturity in his comprehensive economic policy. And I think he was very smart recently in saying he was going to appoint a justice. I mean, another big issue people worry about is the Supreme Court. And so, I mean, that's something maybe Donald Trump has said, I'm going to find a Scalia-like person. I think that will help. But there are a lot of burned bridges that are going to be very hard to rebuild.
Debbie, you brought up an important point I want to go back to, because when I interviewed Congressman Steve King last week, he brought that up too. The insults that were thrown in the campaign. It's got to be amazing for you as a political strategist to think about how personal this got and how a lot of people are hurt because of the personal aspects of the campaign, not necessarily the strategy of the campaign.
I think that's exactly it. And it wasn't just, I was a Ted Cruz supporter, but it wasn't just Ted Cruz. It was for Marco Rubio, to many of the other candidates in the race. And I think that this may play and I will say, I grew up in New York, but this may play for some of the East Coast, New York tough guy mode that people like. But for a lot of serious, active conservative voters, Republican voters, this was just deeply inappropriate. And it kind of caused people to wonder what kind of a guy he really is. I mean, why is this okay with you? And I also think on these personal things, they detracted he got rid of his opponents, but he didn't really Donald Trump didn't sell himself. He didn't say who I am, what I stand for. And I think the personal insult stuff is just, I would like to see it reduced in this election cycle.
Debbie Georgatos is with me, and she is a political consultant talking about the Ted Cruz campaign, comparing it to the Donald Trump campaign. Debbie, thanks for joining me today. We will talk again soon.
Great to be on. Thank you.
It is intriguing. Ted